Welcome and thank you for joining us for the Employment First and Retain Kentucky Employer Seminar Series today. I am Kimberly Wickert with Retain Kentucky at HDI UK. I'm a white female with blonde hair and glasses. Today I'm wearing a black shirt and have a white virtual background. We have captioning available to you, but if you don't wish to use that feature, you can turn that off. And if you have questions or comments, please place those in the chats. We will be monitoring those throughout the presentation. Our recording today will be uploaded at our Retain Kentucky Media site, and I will also put that information in the chat. And we will share certificates of attendance as well as the slide deck out with all of the attendees, usually within about a week. And we would just ask that you take a couple minutes to complete the survey that we'll send to you following the webinar today so that we can get your feedback for a future webinar. And we will go ahead and go to our disclaimer and just let you know that this is for informational purposes, does not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Employment First Council, the University of Kentucky, HDI, or its individual employment or individual employees, and we make every effort to provide accessible, accurate information. And I would also like to let you know about our next seminar in November. And that is to with or not to with, answering all your questions about respectful language and disability. And Bev Harp and Laura Butler will be with us to share how to talk about using disability language respectfully. And I did put the information in the chat. That's on November 12th, and the link is there as well. So just as a quick reminder, we are enrolling individuals at Retain Kentucky. They need to be a resident, either are currently employed or have been employed in the last 12 months, and their injury or illness must not be work-related. And there's also some information that I will also share in the comments or the chat as well. If you know someone who you can refer to Retain Kentucky, we can get you that information. And we are going to go ahead and let me do the objectives first today. You're going to hear about the Employment First definition and how individuals benefit from Employment First, as well as key strategies to include, amplify, and engage workers. And Katie Wolf-Whaley is here today to share that information with us. And thank you, Katie, for joining us today. Katie is has her Master's of Social Work and her CESP. She's the Employment First Council Chair for Kentucky, as well as the Director of the Kentucky Supported Employment Training Project, and oversees other contracts with the State Office of Vocational Rehabilitation at the University of Kentucky's Human Development Institute. She coordinates training and technical assistance for service providers and presents on personalized employment supports for people with disabilities across the state and also nationally. And Katie also serves as the current president of the Kentucky chapter of APSE and sits on the national board of APSE. She holds her Bachelor of Arts degree from Ohio Wesleyan University and a Master of Social Work from the University of Kentucky. So you are a very busy person, Katie. So thank you so much for taking time out to join us today and share your expertise and talk to us about Employment First and how employers can engage, include, and amplify workers. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Kimberly. It is good to be here today. I am Katie Wolf-Whaley, and all of the things she said, I believe they're all currently true. I am a white woman with chin-length dark hair, glasses, and a gray shirt, and I am excited to be here to talk with all of you today, particularly this month. You all put on a great employer seminar series every month, but October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And so it's good to be here today to talk about employment first and give kind of a general scape of what's going on and how we can engage more in this area to help people find good jobs. So we are all here because it's about employment, but we're also here because it's about disability, right? And for a long time, for generations, these two things haven't had a lot of real connection. Maybe we've heard a story here and there, or pockets of people trying to change things, or a business that was created to hire folks with disabilities. But really, we've come so far since then over the years. And in this month in particular, it's a time to highlight that and what's going on. It's also a time to spread the word about all the things that we know on this topic, and that the opportunities are so much more than what a lot of people think. I know people with disabilities can work. If you're here today, chances are good that you know this as well. But the bigger message really still needs to get pushed out there to other parts of society and to the business community at large. It isn't something special and it's not charity. We do have a awareness month, but it's just doing business, right? This is a month to keep pushing that message so we all understand. As Kimberly mentioned, employment first. We are an employment first state. And this is the priority statement that was included in the legislation that was passed here in Kentucky in 2022. It was actually first set as executive order in 2018 as well. That the General Assembly finds and declares that it is the policy of the Commonwealth of Kentucky the competitive integrated employment in the community shall be considered the first and primary option for persons with disabilities of working age who desire to become employed. Why did we need this set into law? Because setting this expectation clearly is still needed, both for employers that people can work and to think about that, and for everyone that people with disabilities should have access to the supports needed to get a good job. We have a disability support system, every state does. Between more effective technology and better design, inclusive design, and just better ways of supporting people, and the opportunities for people with disabilities to be successful at work really are endless. But changing the perception of what people can do is much more challenging. And that includes the perceptions and logistics of the disability support system. It is a multifaceted issue, to be sure. Employment First not only sets this expectation, but codified an Employment First Council to look into all of these issues and suggest paths to change and greater information dissemination. In fact, Kimberly mentioned that I chair that council. One of the things the council does in trying to get information has been to partner with Retain and help promote these employer seminar series to get that information out. Because to be sure, it takes a lot more than just the people appointed to that council to look into these issues, both here in Kentucky and all across states in our country. But this intentional focus on these things is a step forward, and it's exciting to see because it matters that we're very clear about this intention and this need. And these are some of the reasons why it matters, right? Why do we have employment first? Who benefits? When we increase expectations and shift our systems to live out those increased expectations, everyone benefits, right? Taxpayers benefit. When we structure our support systems towards people going to work, rather than having other places where people spend their days, it costs the system less money. And then people with disabilities are paying back into the tax base of our states and our communities. Certainly people with disabilities benefit directly, right? People are people, and most people want a good life, to have connections, to contribute, and to be valued for what they have to offer. And employment is one key way that people can do that in our society. Plus, work brings fair wages and access to additional benefits that people need to live a good life. And of course, businesses, right? Businesses who have access to a broader range of talent, experience, and perspectives to meet their labor needs. And we have talked about the disability support system. Sometimes those supports can help on the job. So if there's a need for specialized support, maybe in learning new tasks or effective communication or accessing different types of technology that you might not be aware of yet, there can be help with those kinds of things. So why else does employment first matter? Across our country, there's a significant gap between those with and without disabilities who are employed. Here in Kentucky, that gap is 40%. While staggering, it also shows a lot of opportunity. Lots of opportunity. This is a chance to find talent in areas that aren't often thought about. As our colleague and friend Kathy Shepard Jones has said so very clearly, disability is not an outcome, it's a demographic, right? This is a chance to find additional employees. It's not a word that simply means someone is opted out of the workforce. We have to change that narrative and speak and in practice. And to remember that it's good business. So we're framing this today around engage, include, and amplify in employing people with disabilities. So why engage? Engage implies action. It can't just be a passive thing, or the numbers would already be different. Right. And we engage because it's good business. I heard this quote as part of an NPR piece just the other week as I was sitting in my car and then looked it up. So Brian Gill runs JP Morgan Chase's Office of Disability Inclusion and talked about the financial services company, that how they make an effort to hire people with disabilities because it's a way to find talented workers in a tight labor market. He says, we do a lot of charity. We have a lot of philanthropic efforts. This is not one of them. This is a business strategy imperative to the long-term success of the company. I think that's important to think about, is that this isn't, it might be the right thing to do, but it's not just the right thing to do or to feel good about ourselves. It's good business.
Katie, I'm going to give you a breather for a second and just thank you for sharing that, because I hadn't seen that until you shared that with me when we were planning last week. And I just think that is so such a great quote, and for an organization that large to kind of share that as a strategic imperative. I had a meeting with another large employer last week, and they basically said something very similar, like this is one of their 6 pillars of strategic planning going into 2025, because they realize that there is an untapped talent pool of individuals that they need to be successful and to really enhance their workforce and their product and their services. So yeah, I was appreciative that you shared that with me and with all of us today. So thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what's exciting, right? Is when we see big companies who put this very clearly, and then smaller companies who are living it every day, because they're realizing that it's not just kind of the nice thing to do or the feature story in the newspaper, but it's good business and it makes sense.
Absolutely.
So how can others do this, right? How do we implement this if we know that this is a good idea? We need some steps in how to engage. I think we probably all have heard people say, well, okay, that's fine, but maybe I don't know that I've ever had someone with a disability come and apply for a job. Well, maybe not, right? We may or may not know that that's happened. And we also know that if we're being strategic, then we have to take action, right? Engagement is very much an action word. So how can we take action? How can we think about ways to engage with potential employees who have disabilities? So how and where do you recruit employees, right? And just thinking about what we typically do and how we can broaden that way of looking for people and bringing people into our company, right? So if you go to networking events or to job fairs, who's there representing underserved populations, right? And rather than thinking, oh, that's sweet, and kind of skirting around, thinking about why they're there at a job fair. Right? Are there people from a vocational rehabilitation agency? So here in Kentucky, we call it the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. Every state has an agency. They might call it different things, but take the time to talk and learn what they have to offer and how do they engage with businesses and who do they represent and how can you share that kind of information. One, about the hiring opportunities that you have, what are your labor needs, but what does that employment agency have to offer you, and how can you work together? So take those times to talk to more people at those events and to really engage in conversation. And then thinking about, where do you currently share job postings and openings and opportunities? So are you connected to groups who know people with disabilities, right? There are advocacy organizations, again, VR, Book Rehab, employment agencies across the state and in communities all over Kentucky, who are there in your area that can share that either on their own platforms that they have or that know job seekers. In some parts of Kentucky, we have what's called the Coalition for Workforce Diversity, which is a group that intentionally brings together employers who have job openings and professionals who represent job seekers with disabilities to share postings and information about positions to make those connections and find good fits for both parties. Right now in Kentucky, those coalitions exist in Louisville and Owensboro and have for a while now. And it is currently expanding into 4 new regions, with one in Northern Kentucky getting underway already and having had several meetings. So those are places to go and engage. Um, some of their meetings are in person, some of them are virtual. So there's different ways of getting involved and sharing information and making those connections. The Kentucky Chamber of Commerce recently held their annual Inclusive Workforce Summit, and they're planning a Disability Hiring Academy for 2025. So these are intentional efforts to connect businesses and employees with disabilities. But groups don't have to be disability specific for this to be effective, right? So where else do you network and who is there? If you're at a local chamber meeting or a SHRM event or some other type of local business networking group, who's in the room that can help you broaden your recruitment efforts so that you can have those conversations? And where do I find people and how do I post and how do I recruit and where can I make these types of connections? If you're here listening to this and you're a service provider, what business networking groups do you participate in and who do you talk to and how do you engage with employers to make sure that those connections are happening and that we're having those conversations? Because goodness knows we all have to engage in this front. Do you host interns, right? Do you have interns? Do you hold a mentoring day for students? And who do you connect with to find people to share about your field? Because we all need young people to get interested in our field so that they'll apply for jobs that we have in the future. So as you make those connections, think about connecting specifically either with a high school special education department or just asking, how do you bring students into my business? And are you connecting with all the different groups in your school, including the special ed classes, to make sure that that's happening? Or do you work with the University Office of Disability Services and invite them to have students to come and shadow employees for a day, or to have a series of conversations, or somehow to let them know about internship opportunities, or whatever ways you reach young people learning about your field? Again, just to help identify who those groups are that can get you connected to people with disabilities and to broaden the way you bring people in. And when people are interested, can they access you, right? Are your hiring platforms accessible? Are your job postings screen reader accessible? Is your website, is information sheets that you have about your company and your social media platforms? Is the color contrast enough on your website and in those marketing materials and postings that people can easily see it? Do you have videos about your company that you share? And are they captioned, right? Whether it's a formal, informative video about your company and about the work that you do and the positions that you're looking for, or do you have fun short bits on social media? And are there captions on there so that people, for a wide range of reasons, can read what's being said? What about your job descriptions? Do they make people feel welcome and encouraged to apply? Or do they inadvertently screen people out, right? Is it a really long list of everything one might ever do on the job? And so those are included as essential functions? Or could those things be grouped together, right? So that several of the items currently listed can be chunked into one and combined in a posting. So maybe you go from 18 essential functions to 7 or to 5. This can allow you to get more white space on the page. It's easier on the eyes and it's less overwhelming in general. So it appeals to more people and it increases the chance of a solid applicant pool, right? The last thing you want, regardless of the person, is for someone to look at a job posting and think, oh my gosh, I don't have every single one of those, or I'm not sure that I'm great at every single thing on the list, and just not apply, because we're missing out on a lot of people who could be really good in that job. And so another common example that we think about with job descriptions is, do you really need to be able to lift a certain number of pounds to do the job, right? Kimberly, do you have something to say? I know this is an area you're interested in.
I was just going to read a comment in the chat, so go ahead and finish and
Oh,
then I'll do that. Sorry.
okay. So for example, I work at the University of Kentucky, and there is a standard format of job postings, and one of those labels is physical requirements. And so the institute where I work has a response that they put in that's on your screen here. While there are physical, psychosocial, and cognitive requirements of the position, the job duties can be accommodated for essential functions being completed in a variety of ways. No one is asking you to change all of your positions. No one's asking you to sacrifice the essential functions that need to be done. You have a company, you have work that needs to be done, right? That's the whole point of it. It's a matter of thinking about those postings to more accurately convey what they entail, so more people are likely to apply. And in this case, to let people know that you are potentially open to how those tasks are accomplished. It's about being proactive and engaging with a broader pool of people.
Yeah, I think that is really innovative. And Michelle Lauer and I are working with an employer right now, and on their job descriptions, they have something that says, push, pull, lift, carry, or otherwise move up to X amount of pounds. And that's another really great way to engage too, because people don't think, oh gosh, I have to lift 50 pounds. They read, okay, well, otherwise move. I know how I can do this, and I can do it this way without having to lift it. So I think that's a great opportunity for all employers to think about.
Yeah.
Lori Mays put a comment in the chat, and thank you, Lori. She put the link to the Kentucky Chamber Foundation Disability Hiring Academy interest form, and I would highly encourage everybody to check it out. Several of us at HD have had the opportunity to be part of that advisory committee for that, and Lori and Callie and a lot of our partners at the Chamber have worked very hard to put together a lot of really great content. It'll occur in January and February of next year. So thanks, Lori, for putting that in, and Katie for giving them the shout out. And again, check it out, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lori, for putting that in there. I just think as Kimberly read my bio, I've talked about this stuff for a long time and been involved in the disability employment world. And it is really exciting to see entities like the State Chamber of Commerce really take notice and realize, okay, how can we help employers better understand this? I mean, National Disability Employment Month isn't new, right? We even call it NDEAM. We've got a fun little acronym for it. But getting large businesses to think about it, and those who talk to businesses and connect with businesses to have it happen in those conversations, is happening more often in our state now. And that is really exciting. So thank you for sharing that. And as businesses, did you know there's a network of disability employment providers, right? The engagement does not have to be one-sided. You don't have to have all the answers or come up with ways of restructuring your job descriptions on your own, or rewording things, or what does it mean to make things accessible, because there's a lot to it, right? But there are entities out there that understand this and who do this for a living. Again, every state has a vocational rehabilitation agency that is charged with assisting people with disabilities to find and maintain employment. So it's a great place to start, especially here in Kentucky. They're the the beginning point for employment services, publicly funded employment services to help people with disabilities go to work. And then oftentimes they also will work with or partner with a network of provider agencies who can often offer more individualized services to job seekers who hopefully become employees with disabilities and to businesses across our state, right? They have, we call them employment specialists all across Kentucky who can get to know you and your company, your hiring needs, the culture, what's important to you, so they really understand who you are and what you're looking for. The goal is not just to slot a warm body, but to be helpful to you and then recommend potential employees who could be good candidates. A lot of times they can even help with onboarding and retention in ways that make sense for that employee with a disability and for your company, right? Does someone need a little extra time in learning new tasks or just a different way of taking in information, that they can be there to work with you and to support that. I mentioned the Coalition for Workforce Diversity. Voc Rehab has a business engagement office. We also have the Innovative Supports for Autistic Workers Project here in Kentucky, which offers support directly to businesses and job seekers in hiring and retaining employees who are autistic with that particular impact of disability. So often it's about knowledge and how to engage with people, and just knowing that there isn't a need to feel like you're all on your own in this. And this seminar series is a great way to get information on a regular basis and to learn who those partners are, those potential partners in the state that can help you think about this. Right, which gets us to thinking about include is our next word, right? That idea of inclusion at work. The Retain Inclusive Health Leadership Network created a definition on what an inclusive workforce is. And I think it's helpful for all of us to think about and what that means for our own workplaces, right? An inclusive workforce is one in which the unique skills, contributions, and diversity of qualified individuals, including those with disabilities, are actively recruited, valued, and integral for success. It's an environment where the engagement, development, retention, and advancement of an increasingly skilled and diverse workforce is promoted and supported across all employment sectors and levels. It's really this idea of embedding it into our organizations. It goes back to Kimberly, our earlier thought about from the JP Morgan Chase quote, it's not charity. It's not, oh, we did something nice and we have somebody in this one particular person and position in this office. It's this is how we do business and how do we make sure that our workplace is inclusive and that people can be successful so that our company can be successful. But for our companies to be successful, our people need to be successful, and that's everybody, right? So we want to be inclusive of people with disabilities, but a lot of times this is just thinking about how we support our employees well. Right. So for your business, a lot of times it's a culture thing. What's important to you and to your company, right? What are those critical expectations and ways that things have to get done? Is it a team approach? Is it expediency and efficiency that's most important? Is it positive customer service and that outreach that we can provide to others? And then keeping all those things in mind as you hire and welcome employees. Certainly, we think often about hiring people that fit that about us, but then also thinking about, okay, I see someone here, a potential employee who has the skills that I need, and the fit might look different. And so does everybody have to be exactly this? Like, this is what I think makes a good customer service representative. Does everybody have to fit that mold? Or what are skills that people bring, and how can I think about them using that in ways that make sense to get the work done? But maybe bring in some different types of perspectives than we've had before. How do you onboard people? What does orientation look like? Do you ask people how they best take in information or what their preferred learning style is, or if they might need an alternate format? Just by asking that of all of our employees, then people can learn in a way that makes sense for them. Some people learn best with clear verbal direction, some through reading, some by watching tests performed by others. So if you know how someone learns best for any employee, that can ease that onboarding process for everybody involved. Do you have a mentoring program already, or might somebody benefit from that, right? Where you can connect someone with a current employee, an experienced employee, where they can ask questions, certainly about the job and how to do the specific tasks, but also how do things work in the company that aren't always obvious, right? What are some of those unwritten rules about what's important and what happens there? Those typical communication practices in a business. What are those acronyms that everybody seems to know what they mean, but except for the new person who's 3 steps behind and lost, right? Or just to have a safe space to ask those kind of questions and to find help getting those answers. Nobody wants to Nobody wants to feel like they don't understand. And so we worry about those little things, and suddenly we're steps behind and missing what's being said next. So if we have that safe space to ask, everybody can benefit, but particularly someone who might have a different style of communication or not understand some of the typical communication styles or norms that go on, that just need a safe space to ask those questions. Right? And then how do we we need the job to get done, right? That we're talking about employment, we're talking about job standards and requirements, um, task completion and retention. Um, right? That mentoring program can spill over into this so people stay on the job and learn all the ways of being successful in your business. So it might be formal accommodations and it might be general modifications of how things are done. And these things increase success on the job, and they increase our rates of retention. Everyone knows how expensive turnover is and how much time it takes. So by modifying things in ways that make sense for certain employees, it helps our bottom line and our workflow in the long run. Right. So there's those principles of universal design, thinking about designing our space and expectations in ways that work for everyone. And sometimes it's specific to the needs of one person. Jump my slide quick. So here's a list of examples of things that might be offered or negotiated through a formal accommodation process, or just discussed with someone informally, but based upon what you need to have completed for the essential functions and that particular person so that they can be a good employee for you, right? Switching from, if there's the capacity, from fluorescent bulbs to floor lamps. I had an office where I just took the fluorescent bulbs out, but I was able to change them with floor lamps because it reduces headaches. Or maybe covering them with a cloth of some type if it's safe to do so, to dim the bright light for over that one particular workstation in a way that works best for that person. Noise canceling headphones can be a gem at a workstation to increase focus and attention to detail, and just to not hear all of the other talk and distractions for a wide range of people. Can someone Zoom into meetings? We've all heard about what we've learned about that hybrid workforce, and maybe there are some work from home options. I also know people who sit in the room with everybody else, but they've got Zoom on because then they can turn the captions on, and they have a hard time hearing everything that happens. But Zoom can have those auto captions, and so they can better engage with, even with people in the room, by having that type of capacity. Some people benefit from having more shorter breaks rather than a couple standard breaks, having those breaks spread out throughout the day, or extending work hours to fit in more breaks for whatever reason they need to do so. Right? We talked about job postings, but having those tasks sometimes broken down into additional steps so that someone understands exactly what you need done and how you need it done. Just different cues, right? Visual cues rather than having everything written. Some people much prefer written instruction over verbal things. I've known people, I go in and I use a lot of words, you've noticed, and I'll say everything that needs to be done. And then I think, up, you take this in better writing. You know what? I'm going to go back and send you an email. And it just works better for people. So remembering how people take in information and sticking with that. Right? There's all kinds of apps out there to help with task sequencing or reminders, things that are just built into the smartphones that we have every day, and then more formal types of things so people know what comes next and what those expectations are. Or is it just something little, like somebody needs assistance warming up their lunch because they can't reach the microwave or their arms don't move to turn the buttons on, but if someone heats up their lunch, then they can eat with everybody else, right? It's those formal things and those small things that we want to think about when it comes to having an inclusive workforce.
It seems like
Again, you
all
don't.
of those would, a lot of those would benefit all workers too,
Yeah.
like the fluorescent bulbs or even
Mhm.
the zooming, into a meeting and using the transcription. So then everybody could have the notes after. So that's just, it just, those are all great examples. And looking at it, I was thinking, I think that would benefit a lot of workers. So it's a win across the board.
Exactly. And I hear time and time again of from employment specialists who are out in the field helping people get jobs and implementing what they see as accommodations, but oftentimes people in the company realize, oh, well, that's not just helpful to that person, that would be helpful to everybody. And so it gets spread out across their company because it's just helpful to think about different ways of doing things. And no one keeps that method because they don't want it shared. They just haven't thought about it yet. So it is just about being intentional. And you don't have to do it alone, right? If you have an employment specialist that's helped somebody connect you with that job, you have that particular professional. Um, people through Retain and through this series that Kimberly brings and all the different wealth of resources. There's also things like the Job Accommodation Network, and there's all kinds of online platforms and ways that you can to get ideas as well. So Jan, see those acronyms as they're affectionately known. They've had this feature for a while, but they have redesigned it recently, the Situations and Solution Finder, where you can go in and put in a specific issue that you're having, an impact of disability or a type of work that needs to get done, and find potential accommodations and ways to, excuse me, to help somebody be able to do that on the job. So just right there at your fingertips, you can help find strategies that can be helpful. And they have all kinds of other information too. They've got all kinds of briefs, on basic topics like the ADA, your responsibilities as an employer. What are you responsible for? What is the employee responsible for? How does this conversation go when you think somebody needs an accommodation? Yes, there are people to call and ask, but there's also all kinds of tools that you can read and learn more about that. Right? So we talked about engage, include, and amplify. Especially in this month of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and every month, surely, we want to share that message of confidence and competence and value. Again, it's not pity, it's not something separate. We're special. It's just a gentle reminder that people are people, right? And how we share that message. We want to give that reminder that people are people, that our places of business are good places to work. A person with a disability is not any more of an inspiration than any other employee who shows up and does good work, right? We're talking about inclusive practices and ways to get things done. So when we think about our marketing materials, our social media presence, our website, who's in the pictures, right? And what language is used around your values, and has disability been considered? Who's in positions of leadership in your company, and what voices are at those decision-making tables? And do they represent people with disabilities? Is this idea talked about or considered? Or can you bring it up? Do you share the message of being inclusive either externally or even internally? Since we're not quite yet at a point where we don't need National Disability Employment Awareness Month, right? What stories can you share, and how can you highlight that message through your own formats and platforms that you have? These are all Kentuckians with a wide range of impact of disability who are successfully employed from one end of the Commonwealth to the other. They came to their jobs through different supports and networks and with different resources and different skills and talent, but the common theme is they all bring value to a Kentucky business. Right? We go back to those statistics and we can call it an opportunity gap, where we've got a big gap between people with and without disabilities who are employed. Some of that's an expectation gap, right? We're just not sure what it means to employ somebody with a disability or what that looks like. And so it's that idea of being intentional and then amplifying good things that happen. By employing a diverse workforce and reaching out to our schools and sharing photos and stories, we all help make this an expectation for people with disabilities rather than being the exception to the rule. Businesses need employees and people need jobs. It doesn't have to be rocket science. And there's help out there for businesses to understand what to do and to connect and to find the right kind of supports and to be inclusive around people with disabilities. Um, so that we can increase those rates of retention and success on the job and make our businesses better places to be. Thank you for your time and for joining today. I am excited about your seminar that you have next month and encourage people to listen and really just to retain for sponsoring this series throughout the year.
Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you for those pictures and examples. I think it definitely got me thinking about some innovative strategies to share with employers, and hopefully it got others in this webinar today and people who will be listening to the recorded version to do so as well. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your very busy schedule to share your expertise. And we're getting a lot of thank you for your informative session. Fantastic job, Katie. So thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.